From Washington, this is VOA News. The European Union amends an embargo on the Syrian opposition. Dozens killed in Iraqi bombings. I'm Ray Kouguell reporting from Washington. British Foreign Secretary William Hague says a 27-nation EU agreed to amend an arms embargo on Syria to allow the arming of Syrian rebels trying to oust President Bashar al-Assad. Secretary Hague announced the agreement in Brussels Monday at the end of marathon negotiations. Britain and France have been the main advocates of arming the Syrian rebels, while Austria and other nations had resisted such a move, fearing it could worsen Syria's civil war. The EU also decided to extend all financial and economic sanctions on Syria for 1 year. The top diplomats of the United States and Russia met in Paris with no apparent progress in their efforts to hold a peace conference next month aimed at ending the Syrian civil war. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said holding such a peace conference planned for Geneva should include all key outside players who have influence on the situation on the ground in Syria, an apparent reference to Iran. Both Russia and Iran are among Syrian President Assad's last remaining international allies. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navi Pillay, says the international community is failing to protect the victims of Syria's civil war. Lisa Schlein reports.
In an opening speech to the United Nations Human Rights Council, the UN's top human rights official, Navi Pillay, says civilians are bearing the brunt of the Syrian conflict.
A humanitarian, political, and social disaster is already upon us.
The United Nations estimates more than 70,000 people have been killed since fighting in Syria began 26 months ago. Some 5 million people have become internally displaced, and more than 1.5 million Syrian civilians have become refugees in neighboring countries. Lisa Schlein for VOA News, Geneva.
Car bombs exploded Monday across the Iraqi capital Baghdad, killing at least 66 people. No one's claimed responsibility. The violence comes as Iraq faces growing sectarian tensions after months of Sunni-led protests against the Shiite-run government. Libya is beginning to draft a new constitution following 4 decades of dictatorship. A Human Rights Watch report says women's rights are under review. Sela Hennessy has details.
The Human Rights Watch report, published on Monday, calls on the Libyan parliament to make sure that women are involved in the drafting process of a constitution. A constituent assembly tasked with preparing the draft is due to be chosen by popular election later this year. The International Campaign Group hopes that once the drafting is underway, full gender equality will be guaranteed in the Constitution, including banning discrimination based on gender, pregnancy, or marital status. Sela Hennessy, London.
The African Union says it'll establish an emergency military force to deal with conflicts and rebellions on the continent. The Rapid Reaction Force would serve as an interim measure until the planned African Standby Force is fully operational. The Nigerian military says it's foiled an extensive terrorist operation in the northeastern city of Maiduguri, killing 3 insurgents and capturing 25 others. VOA's Heather Murdoch has more.
Besides stopping the attack and either arresting or killing all of the plotters, the Nigerian military says it has intercepted messages that urge Boko Haram insurgents to fight on against what the military calls a massive offensive against the group. The Defense Ministry also says it has captured one of the country's most wanted terrorists, a man named only as Abba, and 1 soldier was killed in the battle. Fleeing insurgents, it says, now have fewer places to run because several towns on Nigeria's borders have been taken over by government troops. Heather Murdoch for VOA News, Abuja.
Americans honored the country's war dead as the United States observed its annual Memorial Day Monday. President Obama laid a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery just outside Washington. He later spoke to a crowd about the sacrifice of American service members.
So today we remember their service. Today, just steps from where these brave Americans lie in eternal peace, we declare as a proud and grateful nation that their sacrifice will never be forgotten.
President Obama. The first large-scale observance of what was originally called Decoration Day took place at Arlington Cemetery in 1868, 3 years after the American Civil War. I'm Ray Kouguell, VOA News. Details on these and other stories on our website at voanews.com.